ようこそどうぞはじめまして
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the GLORIO Chat, the best anime podcast on the internet. Or at the very least, I think we're better than that awful Star Wars video game trailer thing that we just watched before recording this.
I still don't know what that game is. What is the game? Tell me what the kind of game it is. What do you do?
I saw parkour. And
no, you didn't. It was a trailer. What's the gameplay?
The Titanfall people are making it.
Yes, that's all we know. The Titanfall people are making it, and we saw like 3/4 of a second of the guy wall running, and that's about
And that's all I need to know. Like, honestly, like that's that whoever cut that trailer was like, "Yo, put that fucking wall running in there because we're the Titanfall people." And
that's what people want to see, I guess.
And then they put it in.
Which anime game studio?
I was like, the wall running thing, though.
While we may be better than that trailer, we might be less exciting than that recent Nintendo Labo thing with Toad that came out the other day.
Have you ever wanted to step on Toad's dick? Well, I have good news for you, thanks to the power of Nintendo Labo.
Well, at least he seemed to be having fun, so...
Look, that seemed to be an entirely consensual thing. You heard Toad in that video. He was very enthusiastic about it.
Hey,
and,
man. So long as it's consensual, whatever you're into, I'm not here to judge.
Exactly.
But all right, so we actually do have a lot to talk about today.
Do toads reproduce? Don't they just shoot? Wouldn't they just shoot spores out of their head? Like,
I don't want to talk about toads shooting anything out of anything. So let's move along.
And when you punch him in Super Smash Bros., he shoots spores out everywhere.
Okay, so anime, the new season is happening, and we are going to talk about our first impressions of the spring 2019 anime season. And
yes, we are.
For better or worse. So to do that today, let's introduce ourselves, and I'm going to try to do that before we get 15 minutes into the podcast. I'm Jel. With me today, as always, we have Iro.
Hi.
And we have G.
I beat Sekiro, so I don't really have a Sekiro bit to work with anymore. So
we're running out of non-anime game references to make.
I mean, maybe once we talk to Demon Slayer, you can force a Sekiro bit.
Yeah, I actually have a specific... No, I'm saving the Sekiro bit for Sarazanmai, actually. I have one actually loaded in the chamber just for that, so...
That's the much less obvious reference there.
Are there any, like, in Sekiro, of any of those eye-ass demons?
No, there are no demons with eyeballs in their butts, but there are demons that, Look, let's just wait till we get to Sarazanmai, alright?
Fine.
Barely 3 minutes in, how many dick and butt references have we made? But yeah,
look, we have to stretch it out somehow because
with plenty more to come.
Because there ain't a whole ton to say about this season, to be frank.
Yeah,
like this specific episode of this podcast is just going to be like 12 different variations of saying, I don't know about this show. I'm not really feeling it. I'm probably going to drop it soon.
Well, there are a couple things I genuinely liked, but it's slim pickings this season.
This might be the weakest season I've seen in years.
Yeah, I feel like even last season, which wasn't super strong, I still ended up watching like 5 or 6 shows somehow. Even if
we still had stuff to talk about. I'm not going to say every show that I watched last season was good, but
right.
We paid the price of smiles.
Exactly.
We were entertained enough to continue watching. We had stuff to talk about. I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen after this one, but we'll see how it goes. But first, let's get through today, right? So we're gonna go through and talk about primarily shows we talked about in our preview episode, with a few exceptions. Obviously, we've covered a lot more shows on the blog, so please go read our first look posts, check out the guides and all that stuff for more comprehensive coverage. But today we want to get our hot takes off on a couple of the notable shows. So let's dive into it.
Sure.
I feel like my takes are as tepid as these shows.
Well, I'll warm us up with a very oddly specific honorable mention I want to make for two shows we didn't talk about in the preview, but I thought were worth at least shouting out here. Okay. This is shouting out to two shows that were better than expected, but not good enough for me to continue to watch, while also not having a localized title for some reason. Which applied to two of these shows here. The first one being Hitoribocchi no Marumaruseikatsu. And for people not familiar, that is a show basically about a middle school girl who is very shy and has trouble making friends.
Is it everyone else's fault that she's not popular?
No. And, you know, I did not... I mean, it was kind of very safe and boring, and I didn't particularly love it. But I do feel like it was kind of aimed more toward people closer to that age. So, early to mid-teens range.
Sure.
And it did a very good job of, portraying the main character in kind of a sympathetic, relatable type of way. It's a very kind show. She meets another girl who's kind of shy in a different way, and they become friends, and they're very nice to each other. And it's very, like I said, I think there are kids out there that will find that very relatable and maybe even comforting. And I think that's good. And
sounds boring.
Well, I'm just saying, there's value there.
Gee, it sure is boring around here.
Sorry. What?
Go ahead.
Are we making a segue, or is that just
no? That was just a reference. Never mind.
I don't get that reference.
I'm sorry, man. You got to set this up ahead of time, or else I'm not equipped to. I'm not equipped to alley-oop this with you. So.
Anyway,
so what's the other show, Jel?
So the other show I wanted to mention in that same category is NAMUAMIDABUTSU UTENA?
I assume no relation.
Is a... I couldn't find anything about the original game, but basically... So I don't know if it's specifically a gacha game, but it's a pretty boy anime thing.
Sure.
Okay.
And... it's based on like the 13 Buddhas, which I am not familiar with enough to say anything, but go ahead and go look that up if you're curious. And they kind of do, I kind of appreciated they found ways to put interesting spins on it. Like they actually tried to make a good like slice of life type of show, as opposed to just kind of phoning in, carting out, a bunch of elaborately dressed pretty anime guys. And they kind of go for like, a man out of time, old gods appearing in modern Japan type of thing, where they're marveling over washing machines and frozen food and stuff like that.
Okay.
But they're doing it while being very pretty.
Yes. Well, one of the little spins they put on that they kind of got a lot of mileage out of that I thought was cool was like since they're gods, they can project like their appearance to humans however they want. So, so like, for example, as a joke, one of them shows the new guys that came in and don't understand the modern world. He shows them a picture of like some like 1900s like half naked strongman. It's like, oh yeah, this is what you should look like when you go to town. And so he goes into town, and we still see him as like his pretty boy anime version. But then they reveal that all the people are seeing him as what he's projecting, which is like this half naked, muscly man. And that's kind of like, they play that as a joke, but then they kind of use that trick in other areas to kind of like, squeeze some extra mileage out of the premise. So anyway, I mean, at the end of the day, they were still kind of like boring one-note characters and stuff like that. Like I wasn't super interested to continue watching, but
I mean, at its core, it sounds like there's not really enough to work with there for at least you to be convinced to stick around.
again, I think there was enough quality there that there should be an audience for the show. So if that's your thing, it is, I think, worth checking out. So anyway, shout out to those two shows for being okay.
Great. Is that what deserves a shout out these days?
Hey man, we gotta fill 90 minutes here. So all right, so let's get to our main list here. And we'll kick things off by checking in with the ill-fated One Punch Man Season 2. How bad was it, guys?
It just doesn't look nearly as good as Season 1. Like, that's kind of the core of it.
No way around it.
Like, you know, whether it's just like the kind of weird shading they used or like the weird like metal CGI textures they used on metal. Like, it's just, you know, and just to double check, like, and I, we rewatched some scenes from Season 1, and it is kind of remarkable how much of a visual downgrade it is. You know, I'm not going to proclaim that, you know, the sky is falling and that there's no way for JC staff to change our minds, but they got hell of a climb ahead of them because, like, here's the thing, right? Like, the thing we kind of talked about, especially, you know, when Mob Psycho was airing, right, is Mob Psycho has that visual spectacle. It has that Bones flex, like, you know, just constantly going on, but it's also compelling because we are truly invested in its main character and his development. And One Punch Man has none of that. It never had any of that. And there's nothing wrong with that. I loved the first season of One Punch Man because it was just this kind of non-stop kinetic action spectacle. But that's why you were there. You know, you weren't there for the plot or the conflict or the character development. So when you roll to season 2, that doesn't have that same visual fidelity. That's when it becomes quickly exposed that One Punch Man doesn't have much else if you take away from the visual spectacle.
So would you say it was bad compared to season 1 or just bad in general as far as like or just a downgrade, I guess?
That's a tough thing to quantify, I guess, because
in your opinion,
I feel like I didn't have a whole ton of fun watching it. Like, if I gotta be real, like it's. I don't know. I mean, in many ways, like, Iro had it right a couple of weeks ago when he said that, like, season 1 of One Punch Man ended in, like, thematically the best place it possibly could. Like, that was as good of a soft ending as you could hope for. And I just don't know about I don't know, like, not even just the action, but the jokes and the humor. I'm not sure if it's necessarily as strong, but
yeah. Because you guys were saying last time, like, the part that they're adapting isn't very good either, right? Like, is that?
I don't think it's very good.
At least that's your feelings on it. But
right.
Yeah. All right. Well,
I don't know. Like, yeah, it's just not impressive and doesn't need to exist. And
I think the curious thing is, what I'm very curious about is, and I haven't really checked like what the general zeitgeist is, but like, I'm very curious if the more mainstream audiences even notice the difference. Like, well, like I do wonder, because like even for like, you know, me and Iro, like, of course we knew season 1 looked better, but we had to actually like rewatch specific scenes from season 1 to remember, oh right, yes, this is how this show used to look like. Right, this is like the absurd visual heights that this show used to reach. Like, for the average person who, you know, look, I hate to be that person who's just like, oh, like, of course the proles are going to enjoy this, but it's like, I'm very curious if mainstream anime audiences are going to be just as enamored with One Punch Man, or if the downgrade is noticeable enough for even them to be like, wait a minute, this doesn't look nearly as good as it used to.
Well, you know, it's funny.
I was seeing some like mainstream outlets talking about it, like IGN or something put out a video about
I was gonna
the visual downgrade.
Bring that up.
Okay.
Yeah, it was funny because I asked that question on the preview, is the quote unquote mainstream going to care? And like immediately after I saw that video from IGN, like saying people are wondering why does the trailer for One Punch Man season 2 suck? And so
interesting. Okay, so it is kind of it is at least existing in the discourse.
We should give the masses some credit for at least noticing.
Yeah. All right, hey, look, if it is at least, look, I'm not saying I need the majority. Like, look, I don't need my opinions to be validated by the majority. Even if the majority continue to enjoy One Punch Man season 2 for what it is, that's fine. But I am glad that there is that discourse at least exists. That there are at least people discussing, like, hey, is this not really hitting? And like, at least that people are talking about that.
It's not even about validating opinions per se. It's like if I'm an anime company, I see all the work that goes into season 1, and then the show continues to be just as popular in season 2 with less, whether it be time, money, effort, whatever. Then I'm like, oh, well, then why did I put all that effort into making it look amazing? You mean
the Toei method?
Yes. But anyway, one more funny point I want to add to this. I was watching. So Madhouse is doing a show this season. They're doing what's it actually? It's called Shometsu Toshi, but I think Funimation is calling the title After Lost. It's
not even on this list of the show notes.
I don't think we watched that.
Yeah, I watched it, and it was the worst thing I personally watched this season, and I've watched quite a few bad things.
Wow.
Both on and probably most hilariously, like on a technical level, it is absolutely the worst thing I watched this season.
Really?
It is. I mean, it looks awful. I think. What did I say? To quote myself, I said something to the effect of it looked like reminiscent of an amateur Vocaloid music video circa 2010. So I mean, it was bad. And basically my first thought watching it was like One Punch Man died for this. Because this is what
sure they're just putting all of their energy into No Gun's life.
Hell yeah, they are. Please, oh God, please tell me they are. Please, I need this. Look, here's the thing about Madhouse. Like, yes, Madhouse made Redline. Yes, sure. Madhouse made One Punch Man. Madhouse, out of all the studios, like out of all the like hired gun style anime studios out there, I think they might have the wildest swings between their good and their bad.
Feast or famine, yeah, with them.
Like Madhouse is the kind of studio that, like, when they hit it, they are hitting it at that Bones tier level. The problem is that they just don't have nearly as consistent of a track record. Like,
right.
They have animated some real garbage in the past. So to hear that that's the case this season does not surprise me in the slightest.
Yeah. So I guess rest in peace, One Punch Man. I don't know if you guys are going to keep watching it or whatever, but it just sounds like a disappointment across the board. So
yeah, I ain't even fucking joking. There are other shows on this list. I think I am more likely to watch up to the 3rd or 4th episode before One Punch Man. So
yep,
ouch.
True.
All right, well, let's move along then. Let's talk about Fruits Basket, the return of the classic late 90s, early 2000s shoujo manga class / anime.
Yes, Jill, tell us, how is Fruits Basket Dainu Teise?
Well, it's not a bad analogy, I guess. Although,
Fruits Basket Brotherhood.
Let's get some of the facts out of the way here first. This is a remake, so it's not like a spin-off or like a retell. Like it's a remake to the point where. So I actually watched the first episode of this and the first episode of the original series to compare.
Oh, wow.
And they were almost shot for shot identical.
Really?
Yes, I was very surprised.
That's
so
interesting.
The difference with this one, it is gorgeous. They did a fantastic job. It's top-notch production. If anything, I might say a little bit the first one kind of had a more goofy sort of charm to it, whereas this one obviously just from being more polished and I don't know, just seemed to lose maybe a little bit of that to it.
Is it more self-serious?
Yeah, maybe a little bit more serious. But I mean, they still had some silly anime faces and stuff like that. It wasn't really like a huge difference.
My primary memory of Fruits Basket is like, at least my memory, my vague, hazy, memory of Fruits Basket that I talked about in that prior podcast is like, I remember like at least enjoying or at least tolerating like the first quarter of that anime because it was mostly just like, I mean, it was very bog standard early 2000s anime comedy, but when that's all the anime comedy you've ever seen,
right.
Like that's pretty novel. So I guess I wonder how much of that still plays in 2019.
Yeah, I mean, it was still pretty solid. So I mean, again, to refresh everyone's memory, I never saw the original like before this, so I'm going in completely blind. And I mean, I enjoyed it. It was, I think, it does obviously have a lot of the shoujo romantic comedy kind of flags there, but it has enough of, I think, a unique personality to it to make it stand out.
Sure. I guess the thing sorry, go ahead, Jill.
Yeah, I mean, I enjoyed it. I wasn't blown away. I wouldn't say like, wow, I was amazed or anything, but it was like, this is fun. I'm enjoying it.
Sure. I guess the thing I would say is like, my memory again from the anime is like, yeah, it's like the early aspects of it were pretty comedic, but then the thing that eventually convinced me that like, oh, shoujo is probably not the genre for me is that the latter parts of the anime got very, very shoujo self-serious, very heavy on the drama, very heavy on the relationship like bullshit. Yeah. And I guess that's why I'm kind of curious how this holds up, because like, talking about like the shows that Jill, that you like to watch, right? Like Kaguya or Nozaki-kun or whatever. Like, my understanding, despite having not watched those shows, is that they tend to be consistently comical across the board, right? Like,
right.
Like of course the romance and the relationship stuff does come up, but the comedy never just explicitly like disappears. The issue I think I ran into with Fruits Basket, at least based on my hazy rememberings of it, is that eventually they kind of shoo the comedy out the door, to make room for the drama, and it never really returned back to those lighter roots. And
yeah,
that's why I think I would definitely hesitate, or I'd say I definitely warn you, that
if
you're going into that kind of anime, romance and comedy, if it's anything like the original adaptation, they're gonna really kick that out the door, about 15 to 20 episodes from now. So,
well, yeah, I get I mean, from my perspective, I'm not. That doesn't necessarily bother me. I'm fine with at least giving them the benefit of the doubt to check that out and see how that pans out. I do feel like with you saying that, maybe they're kind of telegraphing that earlier now, because I feel like, because there's some serious stuff that comes up in the first episode, like her being dead or her mom being dead and her having to live in a tent, like that they kind of play off as a joke, but it's not really a joke if you really think about it.
I think that was, I mean, the mom being dead part was definitely a big drama part. I think the part of her living in a tent was mostly played for comedy. So.
Yeah, kind of, but like if you really think about,
I mean, yes, we want to get to the. I mean, I guess that debate, that basically comes down to how much did you laugh at the parts of Hina Matsuri that were
Anzu
living in a homeless camp,
yeah. But so yeah, I feel like maybe they're kind of telegraphing that there's going to be some serious stuff going on later, a bit better in this version, and in its subtle ways. I don't feel like there was a huge difference between this version and the original version, other than this one looked a lot nicer.
Sure.
So it'll be interesting. And also, I think good thing to point out, from what I understand, the original anime did not cover the entire manga, but
it did not.
This one, they are intending to cover the entire manga, whether that be extended in more episodes, or if they're going to condense stuff down, I don't know. But that is what I've heard the plan is. So,
okay, well, hey, that's it's just like Brotherhood. They're finally going to give Fruits Basket the definitive anime it deserves.
So maybe rather than saying this is like Legend of the Galactic Heroes DNT. This is more like a Fruits Basket Brotherhood, right?
Yeah, all right, fine. So Eero's bit was more accurate than mine. That's fine. What studio's doing it?
Who was it? Was it TMS?
Yes.
I was just curious.
I was looking this up just now.
Okay.
Yeah, TMS is they're one of those studios that have been around forever, but I think they rarely get like big name stuff.
I was just worried that a studio actually
very
wildly was going to be stuck to this project for the next year or so.
Didn't they work on Megalobox?
Yeah, also Lupin.
Yeah.
Oh shit! Never mind. This is a good studio.
So they're capable. They're capable of doing some good stuff. They've been around.
They're gonna do Dr. Stone next season.
Oh, really? Interesting.
I think they've been around since like the '60s or something. They're like one of the old.
Yeah, they're one of the old guard.
Yeah. Okay, fine. Lupin and Megalobox were very good. So.
And yeah, I mean, as far as this episode goes, it looked fantastic. One of the better looking shows I've seen.
Sure, that's kind of why I was asked, because you mentioned how good it looked. So
yeah. So anyway, I feel like if I'll probably give it another couple episodes. We'll see how it goes. But yeah, I enjoyed it enough.
Sure. I mean, look, if you're on the bench about Fruits Basket, I think you know in your heart whether it's for you or not. So
right.
You don't really need our recommendation.
Right. Okay. So let's go on to something that's not good. And I have a very specific reason for bringing the show back up. I didn't even want to talk about it again, but this was A Girl Who Chants Love at the Bound of This World. This was that.
Great. That's the name.
This was that anime based by Feel that I was complaining about. That was based off
a classic VN or something.
Yeah, from like the mid '90s, and it was terrible. There was pretty much zero redeeming value to it, other than I guess most of the girls were hot older ladies. But
okay,
the main so. You know how there's like maybe like 2 or 3 different VN protagonists you can have? Most of them are like the blank slate, like no personality, quiet one. But
you don't even you have the like super nice guy.
Yeah, there's some slight variations. Well, this guy was like the loud and proud, obnoxious perv type.
Very appealing.
Yeah. So right off the bat, like I think if I remember, the very first shot is him looking up one of the hot teacher's skirts or something. Like that's how they kick things off.
Man, when was the last time that trope got a lot of play? I feel like that doesn't happen anymore.
An old story, man. But
like, I'm serious. I feel like if I'm actually trying to think about it, when was the last anime that actually played straight the like, ooh, I'm gonna look up a girl's skirt? It's like, I feel like
it's from a more innocent time, right?
Right. It's like I feel like I have actually not seen an anime actually play that like straight in a million goddamn years.
Yeah, but yeah, so it's him perving on a bunch of hot older ladies at his school, including his caretaker because his parents are dead or something. But
convenient.
Yeah, and there's some like supernatural nonsense, and he finds some like naked elf girl on the beach or something, and I think
as you do,
I think there's going to be teleporting to other worlds or whatever. But the important part of all of this.
Yes.
Was when he finds the naked elf girl on the beach, they start playing this music that sounded it was like straight out of like a JRPG or something like that. I'm like, okay, that sounds pretty cool, and I'm guessing it's coming straight from the game, which came out in 1996. It sounded like very much like a video game from 1996 type music. So I looked up the soundtrack, and the soundtrack's pretty great. There's a lot of
that soundtrack's a banger.
There's a lot of moody. So like PC-98 MIDI music,
yeah,
with like the original like sprite art from the video game and stuff like that is pretty great. So if anything positive came out of this bad experience, I at least got turned on to some cool old video game music.
The discovery of an entire new subgenre of game music.
Yeah, I'll link my favorite one in the show notes, but yeah. Otherwise, the show is trash. Don't watch it.
Okay, then.
All right, so let's just move along. and let's talk about Demon Slayer, which I did not watch, but you guys did. So
yeah, we just finished watching episode 2.
How's that looking?
It's fine.
I mean, it looks good.
It looks good. Ufotable is, putting in the work.
Yeah, it's definitely got that, Ufotable, just like consistently high production quality, interspersed with some somewhat questionable but mostly tolerable CG effects.
Yeah.
But, I mean, overall, yeah, like, fine is the right word, I guess. It's not particularly striking, but it is interesting to see Ufotable working on something this
right, because it's just like Shonen Jump battle manga with everything you think is part of that.
Yes, but like produced through the lens of Ufotable's production sensibilities and their aesthetic sensibilities, and like it's I guess
weird.
It's weird, but also a curious project to watch because like the plot beats that play out are very just Weekly Shonen Jump. It's very bog standard, but it is frameworked by Ufotable style of presentation, which is generally very serious.
It's like ultra high budget, like
very cinematic, and right? Like
it's very cinematic.
Yuki Kajura soundtrack and
Yuki Kajura soundtrack. So like you have parts of this anime that are like, in the manga, this is being portrayed semi-comically, right? Like, oh, the hero is doing this like trial to prove his resolve, and he's getting caught up in all these ridiculous wacky ninja traps like pitfalls and falling logs, but it's being portrayed in the way that like Ufotable would animate like Unlimited Blade Works, with the Kaijura soundtrack playing in the background. So it's like you hear all this like chanting and swelling music, and it's like, yo, he's just
this guy's dodging logs. Yeah,
it's very like. And here's the thing: because of those production values, I'm not necessarily turned off from the show yet. There are just enough like neat visual things the show is doing, but the thing I actually want to shout out is like specifically like a 10-20 second sequence in the OP. Like, yo, this OP like starts off as your kind of pretty typical like, oh, shonen anime OP, here's the characters running across the fucking fields or whatever, I don't even know if he does that. I just assume he does. But then like the fucking drop in the OP happens, and the characters all bust out their fucking like elemental sword jutsus, and they bust out like these elemental effects from their swords that look like a hybrid of like ukiyo-e paintings and The World Ends With You. And
that sounds pretty cool.
It's super fucking badass looking. Like there's a character that does like fucking lightning, and the lightning fucking looks like graffiti or some shit. It's hella like, it's really visually striking. It's actually really cool. It's a really effective use of CG as well.
Like
it's like
your
really,
brand, G.
It's like bold and flat shaded, and like got those really thick black outlines, like some kind of fucking like Street Fighter 4 shit. And I'm like, here's the thing, Hero can vouch. We were watching the first episode. I was like, I don't know about this show, man. I don't think I'm in it. And then they play the OP at the end, and that 10-20 second episode, it's like that 10-20 second sequence happens, and I'm like, all right, I might watch 2 more episodes.
Right. Of course, by the end of the second episode, nobody has their elemental attacks yet, or whatever.
Yeah. And now I think we're gonna like watch at least 4 or 5 episodes in the promise of like, okay, when are they gonna bust out that shit?
Right.
Because that looks super badass.
I feel like I need to watch the first 5 episodes because that's how long the pre-release preview thing was.
Right.
Yeah. But if I have to get to the core of like the actual thing with this show, the thing that actually hurts this show, like the thing that takes this show, like this show, I think in a vacuum, this show has the makings of a solid 3 or 4 star like shonen anime adaptation. Good production values, good music, like it looks good. There's a style to it. And the thing that actually hurts this is how Ufotable is adapting it, and that's specifically like the narrative pacing. Like there are these fights, they're not really big fights, but they're like these fights that have happened in episodes 1 and 2 that, on their own, if you take the events of these fights in a vacuum, like purely as they are presented and put together, it's solid. It looks solid. They're decent fights. The problem is that they are constantly interspersed by character internal monologue.
Right. Yeah. Everyone's narrating everything that they do as they're doing it.
Right.
Even though you can see what's going on.
Like, you can see what character A is doing. And then character B is like, whoa, impossible. This character's potential. He dodged to the left and then caught my eye with this attack, but he was actually doing this. And that's literally what we just saw. And 5 seconds later, he's just narrating it again for us. It's like, we see him throw the hatchet or whatever, and the guy tangles up and gets trapped, and then he immediately is like, oh, I can't believe he threw the hatchet and I got tangled up and trapped. It's like, yo, dude, we just saw that. You don't need to explain that to us. It's kind of that thing we always talk about, right? About adaptations. Like, a really good adaptation understands this dialogue is not necessary.
Right.
This is not necessary. We don't need to say this. We don't need to spend time on this. Yes, we should have a line here or there to, like, evoke what was being said during that scene, but we do not need to copy it word for word, because in manga pacing, that's fine. You can have a panel of like 2-3 sentences because that's one panel. You'll read it and you'll keep moving on. In an anime, that one panel turns into like 20 seconds, and that's agonizing to watch.
Right.
And
yeah,
that's kind of the problem. That's kind of the main mistake Demon Slayer is making, because look, I'm gonna be real. If you release a cut of these episodes with like those internal monologues removed, those are probably some pretty solid anime shonen fights.
Right.
It's just it's that unfortunate, like, just slavish desire to emulate the original material without any kind of initiative to like actually really think about, like, how does this actually work? How does this actually feel in a different medium?
Right.
And I think, honestly, that more than anything is hurting Demon Slayer.
Yeah.
Interesting breakdown. Yeah, I mean, that makes sense, because like you can tell the audience so much more with animation than you can in a single manga panel or something like that. So you just don't need to over explain everything.
Like,
so yeah.
Yeah,
and it just makes
like, the thing I'll say to get out ahead of it, because I know some people are going to be like, well, sometimes in manga, like, yes. Exposition is not a bad thing. Exposition is a tool, and manga oftentimes need exposition to communicate certain things because they are not animated, because they're not moving. But if you are animated, you have to think about how you're doing that versus the original.
Right. All right. Well,
but I'm at least like willing to watch more episodes.
Yeah,
I want to see them bust out those fucking elemental texts. They look so fucking cool.
That OP bought it some more time, I guess, huh?
It really did. I'm not even joking. Like, I was ready to drop this on the first episode,
and
the OP alone had me going like, I guess I'll watch a few more.
I'll have to check that out after this. Just the OP for sure.
I might just want to check out the OP.
No, I'm not going to watch the show, but I will definitely check out the OP.
Yes, please do.
All right, so let's move on to another show I didn't watch. Let's talk about Fairy Gone, the dark fantasy show from PA Works.
Yeah.
How did that turn out? Because I was curious about it. I just did not have time to actually check it out.
So you know how, like, Sirius the Jaeger was good because it had, like, this amazing director who had worked on tons of, like, really legendary, like, action anime, and was, like, was supported by, like, a really excellent soundtrack, and in general, like, a very, like, focused, pulpy, like, vibe that it, like, stuck to the entire time?
Sure.
Imagine if Sirius the Jaeger didn't have any of those.
So it didn't have any of its redeeming qualities. Okay, yep.
Even if you have any of its redeeming qualities, that's what you have. That's what Fairy Gone is. It's just okay. To not just shit on it. It's like Fairy Gone. It feels like a show caught between like way too many different directions. Like, it introduces itself as like a pseudo like Valkyria Chronicles inspired like fictional World War post-war tale, about these made up European nations that were fought with like these supernatural beings known as fairy soldiers, who were imbued with the powers of fairies that exist in this setting. And you're like, okay,
sure.
Then it hard cuts to like low budget Shin Megami Tensei of like kind of like what I would call like quote unquote jazzy supernatural noir. They're like gangs and mafias and who hire these
underground auctions.
Underground auctions.
I mean,
and being
either one of those things could be fine on their own.
Like these gangs use fairy soldiers that have lost their purpose after the war. Like they turn to crime and blah blah blah. It's like, all right, sure, I'll watch that. And then it like hard shifts again to like a bad Sirius the Jaeger, except instead of like really good ass kung fu fighting, it's replaced by bad CG werewolf stands.
Oh.
And I think all three of these premises could work, but all three of them being shoved into the same show, it kind of gives the show a remarkable lack of focus.
Yeah.
And it sounds like it's not doing any of them particularly well. That's the
problem. And like, it's just the thing. It really makes you realize like one of those things that I think even we sometimes get caught up in the studio hype from time to time. When we're like, oh shit, hell, we did that with Demon Slayer. Oh shit, such and such studio is working on this. That's interesting. And I think it's always important to remember, of course, that like the people working matter just as much or more so than the actual studio.
Right.
And I think this is a great reminder that like this is PA Works, but this is not the PA Works that made Sirius the Jaeger. This is a far, I don't want to say less talented or less competent studio, but that's kind of what it is. The writing's kind of all over the place. The action's not particularly good. The CG's really jarring. It just doesn't have a ton going for it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the studio only matters because studios often employ the same people, but if they're not using the same people so it's not really gonna.
I mean, right? It's like the reason, like go ahead.
Yeah,
it's like the reason why we're excited whenever Bones does something is because we know Utapon is gonna, he's gonna animate something in that show. We don't know what, whether it's My Hero Academia or Mob Psycho or what have you. We know he's gonna show up somewhere, but like, a studio often. Especially a kind of a rather large studio like PA Works, like that can.
They have a broad stable of people they work with. Yeah.
Yeah, for all we know, this could have been the fucking the Hanasaku Iroha team for all we fucking know. So
I doubt it. But I really don't know. That'd be hilarious.
I just busted out the first, one of those PA Works anime that came to mind.
Yeah. Well, we know PA Works has only like two other types of shows they make. So
yes,
and they're not this at all. So.
I don't know. I don't even know if I'm gonna. I mean, I might watch a couple more episodes. I just out of curiosity to see where it goes because, like, I do like the vibe it presents. It just it doesn't do enough with it.
Yeah. All right. Well, I mean, I guess I don't know if I would say that's particularly surprising. We were kind of on the fence of whether or not that was going to be good in the first place, but I guess disappointing because it sounds like there's potential there, and it just they're not living up to it. But hey, that's how anime works a lot of the time. So, speaking of shows that have great potential but did not live up to them in any way possible, let's talk about RobiHachi.
I mean, fucking 99-cent discount store, Space Dandy.
I think that's generous. I was about to say. I think that's generous because I hated this show.
I was going to say, so you guys know about how Space Dandy, right, was this like really frantic, kinetic, like creative show with like a lot of like really interesting, disparate elements thrown together into what created this like really interesting, just collage of various elements because of the different creators they put on it that kind of created this very like wacky but but entertaining universe. Well, imagine if Space Dandy had none of those, and that's RobiHachi.
What if everything good about Space Dandy wasn't good at all, but we followed the same like basic beats?
Yeah. This show, man, if it weren't for Sarazanmai, I would say RobiHachi was the most difficult show to follow this season in terms of just I just had no clue what to make of this show.
Was it difficult to follow, or was it just bad? I mean, like,
right, maybe that's not the right word. I guess it's just like every comedic bit they threw out, I just didn't know what to make of it.
I guess there were some random unexplained things. I guess there were some random unexplained things, like why was his house a spaceship or something. But I mean, it felt to me like, okay, so let me bring my perspective on this. I didn't particularly care for Space Dandy, but I had a great deal of respect for it. Like, I understood what it was trying to do, and I think it accomplished it very well. This show, I can see how it is trying to kind of do that kind of similar thing where you could kind of jump into any direction, or, you know, you can have a zombie episode or whatever, but it doesn't provide a proper narrative framework for that. Like, there's still too much of like a real, I guess, story or something to it that there's also trying to tell. And so, like, when they do jump into a random whatever tangent, like we have space fighters that turn into a messenger robot. They're just like, okay, it just feels like they're doing those things for the sake of just doing something, and there's no, like, I guess, soul to it. I don't know. It just feels like they're randomly throwing things out there for the sake of throwing things out there, and I just had no connection to it. I hated the characters. I was at some point I was yelling, "Just shut up!" at the screen. I not enjoy it at all. So
I think you basically nailed it, Gel. It's like, I don't know how to put it. It really, like, soul is such a nebulous term.
Yeah.
Heart is such a nebulous term.
I know.
That is definitely what it is, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's kind of like, I think maybe the more, like, you know, quote unquote proper term is like, RobiHachi doesn't have nearly the same sense of a commitment to a vision.
Right.
You know, like in the first episode of Space Dandy, was it kinetic? Was it frantic? Was it all over the place? Yes. But also, was it committed to a very specific, like, vision of what that show was going to be? And was that vision intentionally inconsistent? Yes. But they totally, like, established that early on, you know? Like,
in the first episode, Space Dandy ends with them destroying them, like, blowing themselves up.
Destroying the universe, you know? Like, but, you know, I mean, it also helped they did it in, you know, what is still to this day maybe one of the most jaw-dropping animated sequences, you know, ever put to paper. But, you know, it showed a commitment to, like, this is our vision. This is what we want to do with this show, and we're going to stand by it. Whereas this kind of felt like, you know, it felt like, I guess, not to use this pejorative, but it felt like, you know, kind of like internet random, if that makes sense. You know, kind of just like, you know, random for the sake of random, as if random by itself was funny.
Right. And not in a Pop Team Epic sort of way.
Right. Like, yeah, like, here's the thing. I fucking love Pop Team Epic, like, because, like, yeah, that was random, but again, they had a commitment to a vision,
right?
And that vision was anime shitposting.
Yeah, there's an attitude. There's a consistent, like, attitude to Pop Team Epic.
Maybe that's the right word. Yeah. Maybe attitude is the right word. That, like, maybe that's what RobiHachi, at least so far, really seems to lack. Like,
yeah,
like it's like, here's the thing. I think it could commit to, like, any of its various weirdly disparate visions of what kind of anime comedy it wants to be, and I think that it could work, but I think it almost feels like that show's afraid of committing to any one type of, like, off the wall anime humor.
Yeah, either afraid of committing, or maybe they just don't have the chops to do it, whether it be the directing or the writing, or, I mean, even like the comedy bits, like, it just was all just kind of flat. I guess I kind of found it somewhat amusing when he was recounting all the terrible things that happened to him up to this point in, like, a never-ending stretch of bad deals, and that was probably the only time I was, like, mildly amused throughout the entire episode.
Look, that's the thing. If you want to do that, like, kind of misanthropic style anime comedy, like, go for it. Like, there are a lot of great examples of that, you know. But you know, then commit to it.
Right. So, yeah, I was just disappointed because it was, you know, anime original comedy thing. You know, I'm the comedy guy. I love those kinds of shows usually.
Sure. And like, doesn't this guy come from a pretty known, like, pretty established lineage of, like, pretty solid anime comedies?
Yeah, this is what's the guy's name, Iro?
Daily Lives, High School Boys, Shinji Takamatsu.
Yeah, like he did Daily Lives of High School Boys, which I never watched, but I always heard is apparently like
noted anime comedy Gundam Wing.
Yeah, he was the guy that because he's a long time vet. He worked on like Gundam and other shows early in his career.
Yeah.
Switched over.
Like it did Mike Gine.
Switched over to comedy.
Did a bunch of Brave shows
with School Rumble and has been doing like mostly comedy since, I think. But yeah, he has. So maybe it's not the director. Maybe it's I don't know. But
or maybe it is the director. Not every director has a fucking 1.0 batting average. So.
Yeah, it's true. Because I think he was most recently working on that Earth Defense Club show, which actually was pretty funny.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, that's just again another sounded like it could be a decent premise and did not pan out on that one.
Yeah, that's a lot of the season.
Well,
yeah.
Moving along.
Well, we want to get to a show that had a bad premise along with bad execution.
Yeah, not going to get any better with this one. So,
I didn't even watch this. So.
Yeah, let's talk about Senko, the always helpful fox. I actually don't remember what the title ended up being. It was like Senko-san something or whatever. It's on Funimation, I think. So, either way, this was the show with the super tired salaryman guy who has a mysterious 800-year-old fox girl show up in his house that looks like an 8-year-old girl. And
but don't worry, she's 800.
It's okay because she's 800, but she will, do whatever it takes to pamper him, as she keeps saying. Okay. So I'm gonna try and explain. I guess this show was bad in a slightly different way than probably we were anticipating.
Oh, really? Do tell.
Well, it's much less of like a pedophile sexual fantasy thing and more of a I'm tired and wish somebody would cook and clean for me fantasy type of thing. Which
the weird mix of like wanting both a waifu and a mommy.
Yes. Which is not really better or I'm not going to say it's better.
Oh, I don't know. There's something to be said about.
Yeah, so it's pretty tame. There is kind of one weird part where he's like, yeah, there's still some bad stuff because like the first half I was watching it, I was like, all right, you know what, this actually isn't that bad. So like for example, like when she just magically appears in his house before he comes home from work, and because she's like a fox god or something, I don't know what the background story is, but
sure.
He opens the door, he sees her, immediately closes the door, and
that's always a fun gag.
His mind flashes forward to him being arrested by the police for keeping a little girl in his house, and so once he goes back into the house and realizes that she's still there, he picks her up, puts her outside, and closes the door again. I'm like, okay, this show is okay because that's probably the appropriate reaction for this scenario. But eventually he relents and she lets him cook.
Now hang on, you're telling me that Dogakobo's animation and comedic timing are once again being used for evil.
Yes. Because again, show looks nice, and people at Dogakobo are super talented and is being wasted on shows like this. But by the halfway point, he's already kind of given in and accepted that she's chosen him to pamper because she thinks he's handsome, and she blushes around him all the time, and she gets excited when he asks to pet her tail, even though apparently it seems she gets sexually aroused by having her tail pet, and he kind of gets into it at some point. So that was a little weird. And of course, and I mean, honestly, if the only thing you change in this show was making her look like an adult, it would probably be okay. It still wouldn't be great, but like the fact that she's intentionally looks like a child, which they acknowledge in the show, like it's not even supposed to be like a audience misinterpretation thing.
Yeah, because I was just going to say, doesn't that joke you just mentioned at the very start of this explanation mean the show inherently recognizes how bad of a look this is?
Yes, and he does mention, and like at some point she's like, "Oh, it's okay. She literally says it's okay. I'm 800 years old." So there's no like working around that or denying that, or that's an aspect of the show, and that automatically kind of drags it down. So yeah, but I mean, it wasn't as bad as expecting. I was just waiting for the after dinner, okay, now I'm going to get the bath ready for you joke, and that never happened.
Oh, don't worry. They still have.
I guess they had to save something for episode 2. Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
So I completely forgot.
Oh, great.
One last final jab. So after the ED rolls.
Sure.
Oh my God. Do you guys remember, what was the name of that? Was it like Sleeping with Hanako or something?
Oh man.
Where it was literally just like the first person point of view of like watching the girl sleep next to you.
Oh my God, fuck, dude.
So they do a segment like that.
Japanese woman cracks an egg and asks you out your day.
Yeah, so they do a segment like that where, I mean, you're not sleeping with her, but Senko-san makes you dinner and brings you tea and sits down with you and talks to you while you're eating, like in first person.
Oh my God, dude, that's so
for like 2 minutes after like the credits roll. And I'm assuming they're going to do that every.
Oh boy!
You just know that like that segment exists just so someone can like fucking prop a laptop next to them while they eat dinner or something. Oh my,
yeah.
What a fucking creeps.
So again, while there was nothing like explicit or anything, there was no like,
Oh, not for now. That's because it's the first episode. They want an easy win.
Okay, well, we won't see because I'm not watching anymore. But that's how the first episode went, and that final bit was like the final nail in the coffin, and I just couldn't help but laugh at the end. Do
you think Doga Kobo is actually like doing some kind of like elaborate like type of performance art? No. Like they're like they want like this whole thing that Doga Kobo is now is eventually going to have is eventually going to be called a piece. And it's going to have a title card attached to it called, like, The Willful Suicide of an Anime Studio.
Like, well, I think they're still doing quite well. Like, I don't know if I would characterize...
Well, do you think, like, again, that's what I mean. Do you think there's, like, an Andy Warhol-esque, like, attempt at subversion, but in fact, people just lapped it up even more? Like, Doga Kobo was like, oh, man, we're going to kill our reputation. Let's just kill ourselves. Let's just do the worst shit. That'll, like some kind of like purposeful career suicide, like that'll really like to spite our like I don't know, to spite our producers or executives.
Yeah,
but in fact, backfired on them and made them more successful than they ever could have dreamed.
At this point, the number of bad Doga Kobo shows far outweighs the number of good Doga Kobo shows. So, I mean, I guess that's just who they are. And we had our fun for a little stretch, and we just have to accept that these very talented people are just doomed to work on this trash. So
perverts of the worst kind.
Yeah. So I almost just want to see like what the next, like what segments they're going to pull out for the post credits episodes moving forward, just out of morbid curiosity. But I'm not watching this show, and you shouldn't.
Yeah, I don't think it's worth it.
All right. Let's move along to something that was actually kind of good. Did you guys actually get to watch Carole Tuesday?
We did.
Okay.
I don't know how we watched it, considering
none
Netflix
of us watched it because it's on Netflix and not out yet. But let's talk about Carole Tuesday.
Yeah, let's.
So this, of course, is the latest Shinichiro Watanabe show about these two girls making music in the not too distant future, in this somewhat...
I mean, it's like 2,500.
It seems pretty distant.
Okay, well...
They're on Mars.
They're on Mars.
Just off Instagram, so...
Instagram
and McDonald's and... Was this a show that just had McDonald's?
No, that was No, that was the OVA we watched the other day.
Oh, you're right.
that was Megazone 23,
Oops.
the 1986 science fiction OVA.
I mean, every now and then somebody shells out for the real McDonald's, but I don't think this was. I don't remember that being the case in this one. But they did have the real Instagram though.
Yes. Yeah, Carole Tuesday. It's I did like it. I did like what I saw. It's interesting. I hope it succeeds at what it's trying to set out to do. And the reason I say that is because I think, and again, I'm not just saying this because I just want another Cowboy Bebop or Samurai Champloo. I'm not saying I'm disliking this show because it's not that. But I will say that for a show about music, the music isn't really that great yet in this show. I feel like the strongest scene in this episode was when Carole and Tuesday kind of performed their first piece of music together. And that part I actually really loved. The kind of the kind of awkward nature of performing a song for the first time, where it feels more like a sketch or a first draft. It's really wonderful. So I don't mean that song, because I'm sure that song is going to get better and better as the show progresses.
Right.
But the rest of the ambient music of the show itself so far, I'm not really feeling it.
I mean, okay, let me just throw this out here. Is that kind of intentional? Because the premise of the show is that like the world they're in right now is surrounded by like bad AI music or whatever. Like
down with Vocaloid.
Yeah, which I have
right.
I have some words for that in a minute, but let me throw that question out there. Do you think maybe? I mean, I couldn't see any show intentionally making bad background music.
No, yes, right. That's a really ambitious thing to try, but I think in the history of fiction and media, purposely making something bad is a very, very dangerous proposition, because even if it is intentionally bad and the consumer, the viewer, understands that still doesn't make it fun to consume as a piece of media. People have always talked about, actually this game plays like shit on purpose. It's like, well, fuck you. It still plays badly. I'm not going to play this, unless you're Suda51 or Swery. But, that's the exception.
Right.
But I feel like here. So again, I'm not comparing these in terms of content, but I'm saying if you compare this to other Watanabe shows like Cowboy Bebop, like Samurai Champloo, like Space Dandy, where these shows like wear their musical influence on their sleeves in such an upfront way, where their music is so much an aspect of their personality. The music immediately defines what these shows are about. And comparatively, I feel like Carole and Tuesday doesn't have nearly as well fleshed out of a musical identity.
So the other thing, I mean, for me, I didn't even really notice the other music that much, which is probably telling. But also, I mean,
that's my problem.
You could also
compare that to
you could also maybe make a case they want the actual music that Carole and Tuesday are making to stand out. But I don't think that's the kind of that's some real galaxy brain like type of thing that I don't think would actually be intentional or whatever. But
I will say that, other than the music, again, I did like it. I think as a first episode, that is the platonic ideal of what a first episode should be. You introduce your characters, you introduce your setting, they meet, they find their common goal that is going to be established to be kind of the main overarching narrative arc of the story. I think it's a solid introduction. I think just for me, I wish the aspect of it that I think most of us were most excited for because of Watanabe's reputation. I hope that they begin to show more and more of that as this show progresses.
Yeah. So I'll just say, I also enjoyed it. I think there were a lot of good things. I liked the characters. I liked their relationship. The setting's kind of neat with some of the little technological flourishes and stuff. Not super important, but just kind of an interesting, I guess, world building type of, kind of putting you in the mood for what the main theme of the story is, which I'll get to in a second.
Yeah.
So I very much enjoyed all that, and I agree. The first episode, it was a well paced, like good setup episode, exactly kind of what you want. Like we know what we're getting into. We're ready to go starting next episode. They didn't drag stuff out that they could have dragged out, like I don't know, the Tuesday being on the run for most of the episode or whatever, and then not meeting till the end or something. I could see a lot of other shows do it.
Oh yeah, no, I think that would definitely be the worst way to do that.
And also, Tuesday has a Gibson Hummingbird, which is a very nice guitar that I would like to own.
She's rich.
So yeah, I had the pleasure of playing that once for like 30 seconds, and it's like a $3,000 guitar or something like that. I would like to have one, but that all said, I do want to point out that I have a bit of an issue with the main theme. Because I feel like, okay, let me put it from this perspective as a former reformed music snob from back in my, late teens, early 20s, when I would judge people on their musical tastes.
Oh, so you mean everybody from their late teens to their early 20s?
Yes, but a little bit more so than your average person. I don't like this idea of like computer generated or other non-traditional ways of making music as being like less valid than somebody sitting down with a guitar and a piano.
Oh yeah, no,
and not to say that my personal preferences might be lean toward quote unquote real music, but at some point in my life, I outgrew that phase and understood that, music is meant to be enjoyed. And if people are enjoying it, then the means of it being produced is not really that important. Like,
totally. I mean, hell, if we want to really like, I'll just cut in with a quick bit here. Is like, if you really want to get into it, like, it kind of feels like Watanabe is the old man shouting at the cloud here of like, all this dang Vocaloid electronic music, which I feel is not hypocritical, but very suspect, considering Samurai Champloo's primary like musical theming is hip hop, and hip hop is like the ultimate in like remix and sampling. Like hip hop is almost entirely like, it's almost entirely vocals over like remix sampling of pre-existing music. Like that is at its core what that genre is. Yep. And like he clearly had no problem with that in Samurai Champloo.
Yep. And so I mean, I'm not really a big fan of that message, and it's very clear that's kind of what they're going for. I mean, it's almost even like it's almost like an anti-technology type of thing, like in general. Like there was a very early scene in the beginning that seemed very heavy-handed to me, where when Tuesday is running away and she tries to ride her automatic suitcase, but of course her automatic suitcase runs out of battery and lets her down because you can't trust technology. Maybe I'm reading too much into that, but that's what I took away from that scene of like, that's the message they're trying to establish here. I mean, and like, look, I'm not going to be all like, upload my brain and, free me of this meatbag body, but like,
hell yeah, that's what I'm doing.
But the whole I feel like it's very reactionary to be like technology is bad and stealing our humanity or whatever.
Well, I think it definitely depends on the framing of it. Like, personally, I do think that is maybe Watanabe's bent here. I don't think necessarily it is those scenes you mentioned. Like, I feel like, Tuesday's like, her like, electric baggage breaking down is more like to like, I think that is more just the classic, like, oh, the rich sheltered girl has to learn how to like, really live life, blah, blah, blah. Right. Because I mean, like, in that very same show, like, Carole gets to work on a fucking mono-wheel skateboard, and that's technology. Hell, that's a really rad technology. So,
yes.
I don't think it's necessarily like I don't think it's necessarily a unanimous like anti-technology thing. If anything, look, I've never met Shinichiro Watanabe. I've read some of his interviews. I can't really say I know him as a person or a personality. My my gut feeling is that Carole Tuesday is probably more leaning towards the. And again, I don't think this is entirely a valid take, but I think it is leaning more towards the like, oh man, music needs the human touch, man. Like it's got to have a human being, on the keys or strumming the strings, kind of thing, than necessarily like technology is destroying our culture.
Right. So there was the whole scene about the idol or whatever going to the music office and having the conversation with the guy that like, oh yeah, I'll just be your like face. I'll be a great marionette for you.
Yeah.
So I think that I felt like that was trying to push more towards like music's no good unless you got a heart, rather than electronic is bad.
Right. Yes. Actually, thank you, Iro, for mentioning that. I had almost forgotten that part. Yes, I think because here's the thing. I'm totally willing to bet we're also going to have like a B plot with that idol as well, where blah blah blah. She eventually hears Carole Tuesday's music. Blah blah blah. They sing a song together in the last episode, right? Like that's the kind of shit you can expect from this. And because here's the thing, I don't think it's necessarily electronic music they're necessarily angling against. I think it's more like, because I think in their story they say that all the music is made by like AI, right? Like it's made by the algorithm. Google or Facebook are making music essentially. Right. So I think it is more like, as Iro said.
Yeah, I mean that's a very, I guess, nuanced, subtle difference. I felt like it echoed a lot of things I've heard people say about. I mean, even going back to like you mentioned hip hop with the '90s, and people say, "Oh, it's not real music because they use samples," or like, people using
they sold out.
People using auto-tune. Like, I don't like auto-tune myself, but like just because people are using auto-tune, I don't think it makes their music invalid. Like, it's
auto-tune's a tool. Like CG, for example.
Right.
A tool is a tool.
Yeah. I don't like it, but it's a tool that can be used, and it doesn't make make it inherently good or bad. It's but people take that stance, and I feel like I felt like that was being echoed in the message of the show. And maybe it will be a more nuanced take where it's not the technology. Maybe Carole Tuesday themselves will use technology in some way, and that's gonna the important thing is it's coming from their heart or whatever. But I don't know. We'll have to see.
I mean, I think if nothing else, it speaks a lot to the show that, it can even spark a discussion like this, about what the show's angling for, what its themes are, and
yeah.
Again, if nothing else, I think we are all very much looking forward to seeing how it plays out.
Right. Yeah, and I mean, again, that is a specific, issue I have that probably most people won't even care about, and the core of the show with the main characters and the setting and everything I really enjoyed, and I am looking forward to watching more of it. Okay.
Are you also looking forward to watching more of...
Oh, I am very much looking forward to watching more of the final show on our list.
I'm not.
Sarazanmai, the new Ikuhara joint, which is about 3 boys who get turned into kappas, and that's probably the only logical statement I can make about it.
I feel like that's all you should really say about it. I feel like people should watch this, experience it on their own kind of.
Do we need to explain kappas? Because I feel like that is important for at least having.
I mean, they are water-dwelling yokai who love cucumbers and sumo wrestling, and they steal the shirikodama out of people's butts.
Just like a magic soul ball or something.
Yes, which now finally lets me get to mention Sekiro, because
do you fight
there is totally well, not necessarily Kappa, but there is totally an enemy in Sekiro that has a special grab attack, and if you get caught by it, the enemy shoves his entire arm up Sekiro's ass and rips your shit out of you.
Like, literally?
Yes, literally.
You mean his shirikodama?
Yes, his shirikodama gets ripped out of him.
Okay.
It's,
I mean, a lot of yokai involved.
I did not expect that sort of thing to come up twice in the same month. So
a lot of yokai involve butt stuff.
Yeah, they really do love their butt stuff in Japanese folklore.
Like, just the way it is.
And there's,
yeah, I mean, here's the thing.
There's a lot of butt stuff
Those
in.
are...
There's a lot of butt stuff in Sarazanmai.
Yeah. Here's the thing. I don't mind that stuff. In fact, I think that stuff is, it's like content-wise, I don't dislike any of that. I think that show is okay. To be very charitable, that show is very imaginative. It's very visually impressive. That. Damn, dude. Yeah, that show looks hella good. Like, you ain't kidding. That's Ikuhara with a budget.
Yeah. Yeah, it's by far the best looking, short of maybe like the UTENA movies, at least TV series, like the best looking thing he's worked on so far.
Yeah. Now, I don't know. Now you said movie tier quality, and I don't know if I necessarily... There are definitely some great looking shots there. I'm getting spoiled by Mob Psycho.
Not every single...
I don't know what movie tier quality looks like anymore.
Yeah, not every single scene, but there are some pretty impressive looking.
Yeah, no, without a doubt. Like, I think that show is... I don't know, man. I'm trying to be nice here, but I don't know, man. Sarazanmai is bullshit, guys. Like, it's visually impressive, but I have zero fucking clue what's going on. Like,
see, this is where like I would say with Ikuhara, you either buy into how he's telling his story or you don't. And if you're not buying it, then it's just going to be like meaningless and not have any, like, I don't know. It's not. There's nothing that's going to hook you in it with it, right? But like,
yeah, I guess I don't know. It's like the characters, the overarching plot, the like I broadly get it. I get what is the overall A plot, and I get what kind of the like underlying theme is. I get those aspects of it. It's very kind of persona-ish. Reveal your true self and all that stuff. But like,
well, it's okay. So I guess it's like I would say like it's not about what's happening, but it's like how is this making you feel? And like if it's not effectively making you feel anything, you're not like kind of buying into the whatever, then it's just not going to work, I guess. But like he gives you like the core kind of keywords for us to understand what the message is. And like the core words here are the connections and the desires. And, we're talking about, we as people want to make connections, and we have more ways to make connections than ever, but we still have, things we want to hide, like our desires. And it's all kind of, it's asking more questions.
The title of the episode is "I want to be connected, but I want to lie."
Exactly. So I mean, but it's asking more. It asks more questions about those things and giving you answers. And it is also only the first episode, but which I'm sure they will explore these themes more. But
I mean, no, I totally get it, right? Like, especially with like, again, I think this show is. Look, it is effectively executed at what it is doing, right? Like at the very end, when like. I don't know. Can we spoil it or whatever?
I kind of don't want to.
Okay, fine. When you have the reveal with the main character,
yes.
right? And like his friend is actually being like surprisingly very understanding and very like supportive of it. And the character responds, "I don't want support. I wanted this to be a secret. Like I wanted this just for me." And I actually really get that. I do respect that, right? It's like I think everybody has secrets. Everybody has those things that they're very. It's not, I don't know if shame is the right word, but like there are things that we are broadly comfortable with being things that only we know. And even if our friends would accept it, even if our friends would be supportive, even if they knew about those secrets, we don't want them to know because like these things can be very personal. They can be very, very, very tender issues for a person, and like, I totally get that. And in a weird way, I actually think maybe that conversation at the very end is maybe the one part of Sarazanmai that had me going, okay, there actually is like some real substance to this. I feel like it's just like for me, I am totally fine with a show with those kind of very like very real, very personal themings. I mean, fuck, dude, that's SSS Gridman in a nutshell, you know? Like, and I think it's like, I don't know. Like, all right, if I'm gonna be like, if this were like, if we did like Giant Bomb style like anime of the year discussions where we had to go fucking knives out and like really like cut into everybody's favorites, the thing I would then say is like, I have no clue how the hell anybody can accuse me of liking shows that are all style and no substance when, as far as I can fucking tell, Sarazanmai fits that to a fucking T. So,
yeah, I don't agree with that at all. I think there's quite a bit being said in all of that, but I guess it's not black and white. You know, again, these shows bring up more questions and answers and make you think about things than more so make definitive statements about them. But I guess for me, so like I actually enjoy the like I always say with Ikuhara, he makes anime that can only exist as anime, right? Like these are shows, these are
Yes.
stories that are told in a way, you know, whether you like them or not, it's told in a way that you couldn't do this in another medium. And I enjoy seeing how he accomplishes that with the tools that he has, and like using visual elements to create, you know, feelings and moods and thoughts in your head without actually telling you. Like I think a good example in this episode is the fake Amazon boxes. So
sure.
like or Capazon, like, does Capazon really matter in the world of Sarazanmai? Probably not. I don't think we're ever going to address that, but seeing that logo and that box puts certain, you know, thoughts and ideas and feelings in your head, right? Like we've all used Amazon, you know.
Yeah, it evokes a specific
Yeah,
feeling.
we all used Amazon. We like getting those boxes, but you know, like on the flip side, part of what I was thinking is like, you know, we part of these you know, playing into the connections and desires concepts. It's like we're in a time where we can access things that, you know, some of our desires, if you will, without anybody knowing about it. Like I can have Amazon ship me things that I wouldn't want people to see.
Totally.
And, you know, but, and so all of those things are being conveyed to us with, you know, just one, that's, you know, one example of one image. And I enjoy looking for those things and kind of piecing those things together. And that's kind of one of the main reasons why I enjoy watching Ikuhara's work. And again, those things might not have like a literal meaning that support the plot or whatever, but, you know, it does support the ideas of what he was, or the ideas that he's trying to get you to think about, and feelings that he is trying to make you feel. So
I guess like for me, it's like, I think you're right, and I do recognize that a lot of Ikuhara's work is intentionally kind of like, what's the word, like allegorical, right? It's like it kind of explicitly evokes that kind of dreamlike state that, again, like I said, can only really be done with anime or animation. And again, I think that's why, like, I you know, I very much respect Ikuhara's creative output. I just feel like, I don't know, man, like just like Sarazanmai was just like, I just feel like that thing was just, it was just fucking, I don't know, there was a pacing to it, there was a speed to it that like I should probably naturally be inclined to like, but like the sheer chaos of what was being presented was, even for me, kind of a visual overload. Like it was difficult to follow.
yeah, I mean, I understand that. Like, there's a reason why Ikuhara is more of a cult favorite than a everybody loves him type of type of director. But yeah, I think it's just a matter of either you buy into it or you don't, and if you don't, that's fine. But you know, I really love it.
Oh, totally. And I think that's fine. I mean, hey, and if nothing else, I will agree. Probably the best looking show this season. At least so far. We don't know if any of. Look, maybe Demon Slayer will bust out those cool ass elemental effects, and then I'll change my mind. But for now, Sarazanmai definitely, yes, kind of as you said, it is, or as I will say, it is maybe Mappa's second or third best looking anime. Just falls right behind drifting horses from the Garo movie, but otherwise very solid stuff.
Ira, I'm curious, do you have anything to add on this?
Not really.
Yeah, my apologies. I feel like this was just me and Jell arguing for the last 15 minutes.
I don't know, man. I feel like I've bounced off of Ikuhara every time. But also, I don't know. I'm curious to see where it goes. I feel like I need to watch more to understand what's going on.
Yeah.
But like, I don't know.
I think that's fair.
I guess I would.
The show.
I guess
the show
go
makes.
ahead. Sorry.
Go ahead. No, it's all right. It's fine.
Eero, go.
No, please.
It's like the show makes me feel like I'm dumb for not getting it instantly.
Oh, that's not.
I don't think that's. Yeah. I mean,
I think okay. You know what? I'm gonna say it right now. I'm gonna say it right now. If somebody out there right now is fucking writing their goddamn spiel about how they fucking get Sarazanmai and like, oh no, actually, it was pretty elementary. I picked it up within the first viewing. Fuck you. You're full of shit. Like
it's not meant to be got. Like it's Again, like I keep saying, they're bringing it's like bringing up questions and more so than answers.
Right, but like I go to look up stuff about like Penguin Drum because everyone talks about how great Penguin Drum is, so I like go to look up what's the deal with Penguin Drum, and you get these giant think pieces about what it all means.
Yeah, and those were like either A, written after the show aired, or like B,
I know, but
full
then
of bullshit.
Then I watched the first episode of Sarazanmai, and I'm like, okay, am I supposed to get what this all means? And see, I don't have the brain energy to do that.
Here's the thing. I think that in some ways that is Ikuhara's reputation working against himself. If you have to go into every show thinking, all right, from minute one,
like I'm seeing headlines before the show airs. I'm seeing headlines before the show airs that are just like, "There's foreshadowing from the very first scene in Sarazanmai," yeah. And it's like, okay, what am I? What am I supposed to think going into this show? I want to enjoy it.
Yeah. Yeah, because I mean, I don't think any of it is meant to be nearly as overanalyzed as it ends up being. But I guess to put a bow,
right? So I just don't know what to think.
I guess to put a bow on it, like I would say, if you have already formulated opinion on Ikuhara's works, this is not going to alter your opinion. It's very much in pocket for him. This first episode reminded me the most of Penguin Drum. Right down to the cardboard cutout people in the crowd, just the general mood of it and the presentation, which in my opinion is great because Penguin Drum is one of my favorite anime of all time. So yeah, I don't think this is going to change anybody's opinion on Ikuhara if you've already established your opinion on Ikuhara. But me personally, I am very much looking forward to watching more of it.
I mean, shit, dude, in a season like this, even I might have to watch it. So,
yeah. Well,
dude, my fucking options are fucking Carole Tuesday and goddamn Demon Slayer.
Yeah.
The fuck kind of season is this, man?
I might watch some more Fruits Basket.
I might, we might just have to start watching Evangelion at this rate. Fucking nothing else to watch.
It's not on Netflix yet.
Oh man, you're right. It's not on Netflix yet. Guess we'll just have to look forward to it.
Yeah, some capacity. I don't know. I mean, we didn't watch Carole Tuesday either, so who knows?
Oh no, yeah, I based this entirely on
who knows?
Our Japan correspondent basically summarized the episode for us, and we just kind of
we just figured that all out from the trailer. Basically,
yeah.
So
basically,
we're very good at that. We've been watching anime. We've been doing this a long time, folks. We can just watch the trailer.
Yeah, I can watch a 2-minute PV and instantly surmise what the first episode looks like. Except, as much as I joke about that, motherfucker, first episode of Demon Slayer, that went exactly as I thought it would. So
yeah, I feel like the last 2 seasons we have been on the money with our predictions. There have not been. There have not really been any surprises or any shock.
Not in a while. I'm just
kind of.
Look, man. Like while you're saying Sarazanmai is over here saving anime, I'm just waiting until like May 23rd for Promare to swing in and save us all.
Yes, that's still pending, but that'll be another one we can't watch, right? That's because.
Oh yeah, no. Once again, I will be giving my impressions based purely on the trailers.
Yes. So, all right. Well, that's going to do it then for this episode. Let's get to our housekeeping. You can read all of our previews and first looks and all of our other content at theglorioblog.com, including all the other shows that we didn't talk about here. You can follow us on Twitter at theglorioblog. You can like, comment, subscribe, etc. to the podcast on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, Podbean, or we just have the RSS feed to do with whatever you wish. And we're also on YouTube. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel and tell your friends, tell your enemies. Listen to our other podcast, The Legend of the GLORIO Heroes, where Iro and G talk about the classic 1980, whatever year it was.
8. And by the way, it is, I believe the correct terminology, the correct copy here under the contract stipulates the legendary 1988 science fiction OVA.
Yes, okay.
Whatever, we're well into the fucking 90s.
Yeah, I guess the episode you're currently talking about are in the 90s. I'm sure the next episode will have an interesting trio of episodes for you to discuss. But
we didn't even bring it up that much during this podcast.
No, we got the D&T reference in. We're we joked about on the last episode how we've become those people who can't shut up about the show. So maybe it's best we tone it down a little. But
fine.
Anyways, that'll do it, folks. So we'll talk to everybody next time.
See you later.
Bye.